Thank you, Fiji and Deirdre. Now please welcome to the stage PJ Connor, President of Consumer Product Sales at Hormel Foods. PJ will be interviewed by Groceryshop's Vice President of Content, Joe Laszlo.
Such a pleasure to sit down and talk with you. I have to confess, full disclosure as the interviewer, I am a huge fan of Hormel, but more specifically Spam. I don't look like it, but I was born and raised in Hawaii, and so Spam is kind of the national protein of that state. And yes, so I've been a fan since I was a small kid. I even have the socks to prove it, which I don't know if we have a sock cam, but but I love Spam.
Thank you for the free advertising.
Let's start with Spam and breaking news. So I want you to tell us right now, what is the special limited edition flavor of Spam you'll be coming out with for the holidays this year?
Wow, the first question you asked me and I can't even answer it. Our brand managers would never let me present again if I did that. But I can tell you their expectations are to be even stronger performance than the pumpkin spice Spam that was launched last year.
I did not actually get pumpkin spice Spam, but if there's a can lying around back home that you could send me, I would love to.
Online, it's about $20 a can right now, so it's like
secondary market for Spam. What a world we live in. So let's shift and talk about other news. Hormel recently announced a reorganization. You are shifting your business units to have three, right? A retail unit, a food service unit, and international. Can you talk about how that new org structure with all of your retail brands in a single organization, how is that going to change your role?
Yeah, well, I think, well, first of all, thank you for inviting us to speak, and thank you for everybody attending to hear a little bit about Hormel Foods, and more importantly, how the changes that we're going to be going through are going to benefit our retailers and a lot of our industry partners. So I thought before I answer the question about my role, it would be important to provide a little clarity of how our structure is evolving. So today, we go to market, we report in 4 business units. So we have, number one, we have our refrigerated business unit, which is a combination of food service and also perishable business in retail. And then we have a grocery products division that is predominantly center store ambient product. And then we have Genio and we have international. 3 out of those 4 business units are going to be sunsetted as we evolve into the retail, food service, and international going forward. And then more specifically, as we talk about retail, we're actually going to be combining 7 sales and marketing teams into one cohesive retail team going forward. And that retail team is not only going to have sales and marketing, but also going to be supported by a new center of excellence called Brand Fuel that's really going to have a laser focus on the consumer going forward to help us with our retail partners.
Yeah, that's great. And so let's come back to the question about your role and your kind of where do you play in this new organization?
When I think about that, in one sense, I feel like it's really not changing that much other than the fact that I'm going to be able to work with a lot more sales and sales strategy team members, be exposed to parts of our company and the brands that maybe I haven't had direct accountability for in the past. So in one sense, I don't feel like it's really changing. In another sense, I would say it's changing significantly from the standpoint of there's a lot of change management that goes on when you make a reorganization of this magnitude. And it's also about how do I partner more with the peers in supply chain and marketing and in this new Brand Fuel to make sure that we drive brand and category growth.
Yeah. Are there maybe 1 or 2 specific opportunities, synergies that you see the new organization structure unlocking for Hormel?
I really do. We believe that this new operating model is going to unlock value not only for our consumers, but also our customers. And once we unlock that value, you certainly unlock more value then for your shareholders and also your employees. And I would say our old operating model served us exceptionally well for a number of years, a number of decades. But as our portfolio has evolved over the last number of years, it's created some inefficiencies and some silos. One example, today we have product managers that are trying to solve for the same consumer needs state, let's just say snacking and entertaining. We'll say Planters nuts that is in grocery products today trying to solve that consumer need state. And then you have Hormel party trays that's in refrigerated trying to solve that same need state. They do the same research projects, they do the same insights, they do the same innovation work, but they're not working collaboratively together today. And so there's a lot of duplicate efforts that is going to be minimized, duplicate investments that are going to be minimized. And it's really going to allow us to dig deeper for the insights, more robust insights to bring to our retailers to drive growth.
That's great, thanks. It's a very solid example. Let's talk about the flip side, though. There have to be some challenges that come along with a reorganization like this as well, especially given that the brand portfolio is very diverse. I mean, you have somebody who's like super good at selling Applegate Farms, maybe, who's now kind of going to get trained up on how to sell Spam and Planters and those things. Kind of, how are you mitigating those inevitable challenges?
That is a great question, because the downside risk associated with increasing your relevancy and your scale by blending these teams, the risk of it is that you lose subject matter expertise. And we've been very mindful of that as we've gone through this restructure. In fact, I even go back to 20 years ago, a lesson that I learned the last time that we did a restructure of this magnitude. We brought together our grocery products division and our meat products division and created one selling organization called Consumer Product Sales. And I remember, like it was yesterday, I was asked to lead our Albertsons business, and I had the history of coming in from being in the grocery side. And my first meeting at Albertsons in a top-to-top setting with the EVP of perishables at Albertsons, Jim Smits, we have this meeting, and after the meeting he pulls me aside and he says, "PJ, I'd like to talk to you." And he goes, "I just want to tell you, I really appreciate a lot of the insights and the thought and the ideas that you have to drive the business forward." But he goes, "I have to be honest, you seemed really uncomfortable at times." And I said, I felt like the emperor that had his clothes taken off. And I said, "Jim, I got to be honest. I'm a can stacker. I don't know a thing about meat products." And he looked at me and he said, "PJ, I don't care if you know how to cut a pork chop. I don't care if you know where a pork chop comes from. All I care is that you can help me sell more pork chops. Can you do that?" I said, "Yes, I can." He goes, "Surround yourself with people that know how to cut the chop and know where it comes from, and you focus you and your leadership team on driving the business." That is how we're structuring this new team. We're empowering our leaders to be able to use the entire assets of the organization from a brand perspective, but we're surrounding them and we're supporting them in the day-to-day tactical level with the subject matter experts.
That's great. And it sounds like brand fuel is going to be kind of really that accelerant to kind of help with whatever, whether it's the party need state or whatever other need state comes along, just kind of helping the whole retail team sell better.
Absolutely.
Cool. Let's shift gears and talk supply chain, which is a topic that's near and dear to the hearts of probably everybody in the audience right now. Near and dear to the heart of my mother, who didn't really know what a supply chain was until 2 years ago. In 2021, you guys completed your One Supply Chain initiative. It feels like you were kind of early to the game of making your supply chain more agile, more resilient. Can you talk a little bit about what One Supply Chain is doing to improve your ability to create products and then move those products to where they need to be?
Sure. As you said, obviously everyone in this room has dealt with an extremely strained supply chain. And I would tell you, I'm so thankful that the organization made the decision 3-4 years ago for us to really start on this journey of creating one supply chain, bringing all of the assets of our plants, our logistics, everything to do with supply chain under one entity. And some of the benefits that came out of that, number one, it allowed us to quickly identify and prioritize where we were going to spend capital to expand capacity when obviously the world got turned upside down. Historically, that would have been a fighting for resources that would take a lot of time to get through, but when you have one person and one entity that's accountable for it, it's amazing how quickly we moved. And we were able to, over the last 3-5 years, we have doubled the amount of capacity capital programs that we've had versus the previous 5. So one is it allowed us to be much quicker. The second thing is it provided us tremendous agility. we were able to refigure some of our plant assets as supply and demand evolved. We had two significant incidents that have happened, over the last 3 years. The first one obviously is with COVID, and at the height of it, food service was constrained, and so we had plants that were dedicated to food service items. And because of one supply chain, we were able to quickly make those ambidextrous plants, allowing them to be able to be both food service and retail. The second area that we've encountered is, the impact of high-path avian influenza. And that dramatically had an impact on our Genio business. And we were able to, again, retrofit a number of those plant assets to start producing other Hormel products that we had the supply and the demand for. And the last one that I'd mentioned, and this is really, current, last week we had all of our director level and above positions in the company come into Austin, Minnesota for what we call North by Bold North. And we had a presentation given to us by our industrial engineers where they shared all of the automation work that has been done over the last 2 years, projects that have literally replaced hundreds of jobs, that we are now able to take those positions and repurpose them into other areas in the organization to drive value. And so, just very thankful that, we started on this journey before we got into COVID, because I don't know what we would have done without it.
Yeah, definitely. Have there been any unexpected challenges that have maybe come up with one supply chain, things that nobody could have predicted that you've had to manage for as it's become part of your way of working?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that we encountered was trying to stand up the IT infrastructure during the height of COVID. And I will tell you though, although the team was really stressed and stretched to make that happen, they were able to get it executed. And it would just, I'd be remiss, if I didn't say, I've obviously given us our supply chain lead a lot of focused feedback in terms of getting us more product during this time frame, but I couldn't be more proud of his leadership and every one of our plant professionals, everyone that's in our logistics for, the passion and the commitment that they've had, to really have this come to life from one supply chain in an environment that none of us have ever experienced before.
Yeah, that's great. So definitely one supply chain is helping make you more agile, for sure. Just a high level, very quick question, where do you see Hormel's brands at as far as being able to, fill orders that you're getting from your buyer partners and prioritize, again, getting those goods to the people that have asked you for them?
Yeah, so I would, candidly say we're not where we need to be yet. We're not back to pre-COVID levels. But I can tell you that in addition to the capacity that I talked about and the automation that's certainly helping from a labor shortage perspective, we've also expanded our co-manufacturing network significantly over the last 2 years. We've also dramatically increased the number of suppliers that are in our system. We found that even as we got more healthy in our plants, we started to struggle with having consistency in terms of ingredients coming in, packaging coming in, other inputs coming in, and so we've really, dramatically expanded, our footprint with those other suppliers as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're slowly getting back to a very normal world from a very disrupted world, but we all know now that disruptions come in all shapes and sizes and pretty constantly. As we wrap up the conversation, I want to come back to the portfolio of brands, not just Spam, but others. I think it's fascinating that you do manage such a diverse portfolio, and we live in a moment where companies like Kellogg are beginning to kind of think about splitting their company to kind of put snacks over here and cereal over there. And we heard from Val Oswalt from Campbell Snacks yesterday about, they've prioritized like 8 especially strong brands that they want to kind of nurture, and then there's other brands that kind of get a little less love from the parent company. Talk to me a little bit about how you think about the brands in the portfolio.
Yeah, well, no different than the companies you mentioned. We've really evolved as well. When you think about it, you think about Hormel Foods 15 years ago, we were predominantly known as a center-of-the-plate, meat-centric company. And we were heavily dependent on the commodity markets and a limited consumer base. And then you fast forward for about 10 years ago, and I'm gonna say that I think that the pivot point was the acquisition of Skippy. And when we acquired Skippy, we really started to devolve into a global branded food company. And so now, we have evolved into a company that still has brands that are positioned to win with our legacy brands and the consumers that are very loyal to those brands. But we also now have expanded our consumer base in a number of areas. Ethnic foods, the joint venture that we have with our partners down in Mexico called Megamex. With food-forward consumers, with our acquisition of Applegate and Justin's. And then, a new area for us that has been amplified with the most recent purchase, the biggest acquisition we've had in our history is around snacking and entertaining with the Planters brand. And that really provides us an anchor with a number of our other brands that were already in the space, whether that's Holy Guacamole that we purchased or Columbus, or as I referenced earlier, the Hormel party trays. And so I would say, our brands and our portfolio continues to evolve and change, and we're well on our way to be that global branded food company based off of those changes that we've made.
Fantastic. And definitely we've heard a lot about snacking being a kind of emerging, very dominant trend in the way that we all eat these days. I can certainly speak from some experience there. This may get easier as the reorganization happens, but are there any examples of things that you've tried or learned from one brand in the portfolio that you have then kind of taken to other brands?
Yeah, I really do think that that's going to be another great outcome of this operating model change, is that there's going to be more easier cross-learning. But one that we do have, I referenced Applegate. So for us, Applegate is at the tip of the spear in a number of areas for us as a company, one of them around ESG, and in particular, regenerative agriculture. And what they have done is they actually have come out with what their Do Good dog that is the first nationally available hot dog that is made with beef that has been raised on regenerative grasslands. And it's that exposure to regenerative agriculture through Applegate that's led to us now investing in a 50,000-acre pilot project in Minnesota to learn and to help farmers in this space. And that's just one of a number of initiatives that we reference as part of our food journey, which is 20 goals that are both qualitative and quantitative that we're going to deliver on by 2030, to improve the world that we work in and that we live in.
Fantastic. It is Groceryshop. I'd be a little remiss if I didn't ask you about e-commerce and direct-to-consumer opportunities. I'm just curious how Hormel sees those, and if there are, again, kind of specific brands in the portfolio that D2C feels like it's a great opportunity versus ones that are kind of probably not.
Sure. I mean, it is brand by brand, as you said, but I would say, the first comment that I would make is our main focus is to continue to deliver growth through our retail partners, our food service operators, whether that's in-store or whether that's through their online platforms. That's our number one main focus. That being said, do we have the capabilities to do direct to consumer? We do. Have we tested some of those of our brands in that space? We have, but not so much necessarily to sell, but to learn. So far, it's really about testing and learning. What can we understand more about our shoppers, our consumers, that we can then leverage to improve our innovation efforts. So I guess what I would say is that on our minds, absolutely. Is it a big focus for us as we do this new operating model? Not necessarily. E-commerce is, online is, but direct-to-consumer is not where I would say our main focus is.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and it resonates with what I think we hear from a lot of consumer packaged goods companies, that it's an amazing way to build deeper relationships with your super fan customers, get some data about the total customer base that you may not be able to get through retail partners directly, but the retail partners still remain super important. So we're down to the last minute or so. As you think about the next year ahead, are there any things that you see coming for Hormel that you're really excited about?
Well, I could talk about a lot of things that I'm excited about, but I think that, the main one, and I've said it a number of times, this new operating model. I just really am excited because it is going to unlock value, unlock growth, but it's also going to allow us to deliver on our aspiration, and that is for us to be an indispensable strategic partner to whether it's our retail partners, our food service operators, and I'm just excited and confident that this new operating model is going to allow us to achieve that.
That's great. Last question. Even if you can't tell us what the next pumpkin spice Spam is going to be, what is your favorite flavor of Spam?
That's like asking me who's my favorite child. And I would say, I'll answer that like I answer that other question, which is it depends on the day. But today, it would be bacon Spam.
Very fair. Can't go wrong with bacon, can't go wrong with Spam.
No.
So, PJ, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your insights, and good luck with the reorganization.
Great. Thank you, Joe.